This course focuses on information and communication technology, supply chain risk management. It's going to cover, basically, it's going to roll out in 5 segments. The first segment is the necessary explanation about what differentiates ICT supply chains from regular supply chains. We've been doing supply chain management since the dawn of time, practically. But with information and communication technology, there's a different set of rules, different set of criteria, and a different set of requirements, primarily because it's an invisible product. So how do you control and assure a product that you develop that you can't see? And what I'm going to try to do in this first section is lay out all the kind of terms and conditions and rules that apply to the process when you're developing something that you actually don't have any visibility into. The second part of this is going to look at the risks that go along with that. There are a set of kind of 5 basic threats to supply chains that are to ICT supply chains that are a consequence of primarily their invisibility, but also the complexity of software. We're going to look at what those categories of risk are and talk about what kind of mitigations are required to address them. And then we're going to talk about the product assurance process. There obviously are specific things that need to be done or can be done when you're looking at controlling and assuring supply chains and for information communication technology. And essentially, how do you ensure that when you buy something off the shelf, that it actually has all the security features you need? And so we're going to look at the whole product assurance space, kind of what the methodologies are and what the various kinds of concerns are that are addressed by the mitigations we're going to talk about in this course. And then we're going to talk about supply chains from a life cycle standpoint. Basically, supply chain risk management begins at conceptualization of the product and moves through to the disposal of the product, maybe many years later. And so there are steps that are involved in supply chain risk management assurance that extend out past the point where the product's delivered. And we're going to view this as a continuum from basically cradle to grave with any product that you purchase up a supply chain. And last but not least, we're going to look specifically at that part of the process that extends after acceptance, meaning what are the issues that have to be addressed when you're talking about supply chain risk assurance after the product has actually arrived in your and has been implemented. The DevOps process is the means by which any piece of software, any technical product is maintained and secured. And we're going to look at the special aspects of DevOps that apply to the assurance of a purchased product. What do you need to know for this? Well, the knowledge base is still evolving. It's based on best practice. And there have been a couple of bodies that have done work in that area in terms of accumulating those best practices into standard advice. And we're going to look at both of the agencies that are responsible for standards in that area, and then also look at kind of how they apply. So essentially, there are no explicit prerequisites for this course because, as I said, the body of knowledge is still evolving. But you are expected to understand how professional standards work and also understand commonly accepted business practice as is followed in the technology sector to provide a complete and comprehensive solution. And our aim is basically for you to formulate a personal vision of the process, meaning have a kind of a comprehensive end-to-end, perhaps a little bit in-depth understanding of how you acquire products and services securely. And that includes, purchasing products that are essentially off the shelf, where you aren't involved in their development. In terms of learning objectives, well, first of all, you want to be able to define an end-to-end supply chain risk management solution. And we're aiming at providing that for you here. We also, that's based on monitoring and control. And so we're also going to focus extensively on how you monitor and control the build during the initial product development phase up a supply chain. Supply chains are risky in the sense that they're complex, and most of the parts of the supply chain are invisible, at least at this point. And so the idea basically is to build in, how do you build in visibility into the product right to the very bottom, beginning of the process? Since supply chains are for ICT products is primarily code-based, there's going to be a special emphasis on code assurance and what it takes in order to make sure that the software is essentially defect-free, free of malicious objects. This is actually not last but not least. There's a tendency to want to say that, but what we're going to look at here is the acceptance phase. The product has to be accepted, implemented, and sustained systematically in conjunction with the initial development process. And so the idea basically is that this isn't something that's kind of delivered as a black box. You don't know what it is, and you have to figure out ways to maintain it. The idea basically is to build in a kind of an end-to-end process that at the end of the process, at the middle of the process, at the point where the thing is actually going to be put into use, all the assurance activities that develop the product just simply continue on into the sustainment phase. There are aspects of sustainment that are really not part of development, which is kind of obvious, but the question is, how do you execute a sustainment process with assurance? And we're going to address that in the later part of this course. The whole point is to ensure the long-term correctness of the product is built. And that's sort of the way we view this. This is not something where we're looking at how to do product development. We're not looking at something about how to sustain a COTS product. What we're looking at is how to sustain something that's developed up a supply chain from the point where it's initially contracted for to at the end of the product, its life cycle when it's decommissioned. And so here we go in the process. This will be a interesting adventure, and it's an introduction to something that's absolutely critical, but at the same time, kind of a mystery right now. At the end of this course, we hope you're going to see into that mystery and have come up with your own personal understanding and solution of the problem.